if we think about some of the key tendons around here, okay, so the bits that muscles, the bone bits. So we've got that one, pull up again for a second here, the tibant, okay, tibialis anterior, really strong one. And I wouldn't really want to be able to pull you down too much. Some people aren't particularly good at this. Good. As you stand on your heel and your foot comes down, that muscle lowers your foot to the ground. So if it wasn't working, that would happen. I saw a guy about a year ago, it's actually a friend of a friend, who did an adventure race, one of those 24-hour ones. He's quite a fit guy. And there was a load of hit more hills than he was used to from a running point of view. And he came in with his kind of foot slapping and he'd ruptured it, gone completely. Kind of ran on completely. So sometimes that's the case. When you rupture a tendon, it's not as sore as when you just annoy it. Ruptured tendons sometimes aren't as sore, you know. It's a really unusual thing, like I've never seen one before. So that's the tibant. The other ones then are ones that pull your toes up. So one that certainly pulls your big toe up and pulls your smaller toes up. And they all sit just up here. That's them up there. They attach in that part. So that all attaches, they all attach in that part of the leg, okay? We'll call it an anterior compartment, anterior crural compartment. Then the other tendons we'll have on the outside, now our anatomies are all slightly different. Some people have more muscles than others, okay? Some more advanced ones, like lots. There's generally at least 3 down here, there's sometimes 4, occasionally 5, get a couple of the accessory ones. And these muscles, called your perineals, come down and against you there. You can see them kind of jumping out there. So the longus and brevis are the sort of bigger ones. And the brevis attaches onto here, okay? So it attaches onto there, and primarily it does that action. Then the longus goes just behind this, okay? And it sits in that little groove, so it wraps around that cuboid we talked about, and it attaches onto the base of the first metatarsal in there, okay? And its job is it actually plantar flexes, it pushes down that first ray, okay? So it's, you know, if you think when we're pushing off and when we're propelling ourselves forward, we want to use this and this, okay? Both that and that. So that's an important muscle to be working well if you're going to be springing off a nice strong leg. So if I was testing that, if you have your foot just towards me and keep it pointed down, I would test it that way to see how it is, and I should not be able to shift that. That should be completely solid considering the weight you're putting through it. And sometimes people, it really ain't, you know, especially people who are it's kind of quite loose through their feet, or their feet do move quite a bit. We'll look at that in a minute. And then a couple other important ones. Well, the Achilles is fairly obvious, yeah. That big muscle which is made up of your gastrocnemius and your soleus. Now, your soleus does most of your work, like 70% of your work when you're running forward at a slower speed, and then the gastroc will come in as more fast twitch fibers and will come into more the sort of sprinting, jumping type of exercises, but a really important complex. If this isn't working well, the rest of your system will try and do it, and the outcome's still the same. So you might be loading the perineal tendons and tib post and these other areas as well. That wee plantaris one I was telling you about is just lies here, just in there. Well, it goes right up here. There's actually about 9 different attachments. I could bore you with it to death, but that tends to be the area that is most of the problem with it, with that sort of area. So if you have an Achilles, just ain't getting better, it's just a pain in the inside. It's probably that needs to be treated a wee bit different than an Achilles, so just keep that in mind. Other tendons then, so tib post, if you can just pull in against me there, is tibialis posterior, is this one. It's hard kind of to see here, but it attaches on to that navicular bone that we were talking about earlier on, just a wee bump on the navicular, and it runs here and then up the back of the leg deep into the calf, sort of across at an angle. And it's a really important muscle to help support that arch. So as you put your foot in the floor, it controls that motion to set your arch out on the ground. And it's one we see an issue with quite a wee bit, and what we'll look at in exercise is to specifically pick that out. So while we're on that, Kira, you stand a second just to take a maybe stand on the floor, probably sit there. Just step basically onto one leg and then step back for us a few times. So as you step down, if you keep doing that for us, it'll be brilliant. There are 4 main arches in the feet. So you have an arch on the outside of your foot. You've got the obvious one on the inside, okay? You've got 2 others. So you've got one here on the front of your foot, so it should actually be arched, it's not flat. And you've got an arch at the back as well of these metatarsals too, and they're important. So I often see runners who end up with lots of issues in this part of their foot because that arch is collapsed down. You know, it could be skin, and that obviously makes you more predisposed to loading that second metatarsal, which isn't good because we really want to spread load between that first and fifth. There shouldn't be a huge amount of weight bearing going through there, that can cause issues. So as Kira sets down, that arch should drop, and that's called pronation as the arch drops down, and it's completely normal. We have to pronate to help absorb force. and that's a rotational movement which primarily happens through that subtalar joint as you set your foot down. Okay. Now people talk about overpronation and it's too overused. What's overpronation? We're not really sure, so I don't know how you guys can be sure. We kind of tend to say as you go to mid stance, and then if you walk through for a second here as well, as you go from that heel strike to mid stance, that pronation should happen. If you go from mid stance to kind of toe off and it continues to drop down, they term that overpronation. But I mean that's what you'll hear, but there's flexibility in that. But the important point being that your foot should pronate, it should drop down. People with a really high arch obviously won't pronate just as much. And you have people who've got completely flat arch, so it ain't going to do really much at all. And then you have everything in between, okay? So we're going to have a look at our feet in a wee second and maybe pick a few out. So that's a completely normal thing that should happen. And there's a lot of talk about, my foot pronates, so I need to get motion control shoes or get orthotics and this sort of stuff. There ain't research for that, as we talked about a wee bit earlier on. What's more important is controlling the forces around your subtalar joint rather than just putting devices in to stop movement. Okay, I'm not saying orthotics won't replace, because I think they do, but I think there's an over-reliance on it. So fashion, everything's fashion, from trainers to what you're wearing, we know that. Same thing as sports medicine. So years ago, orthotics, flat feet, orthotics, you get orthotics. And now we're going to barefoot running. We're going from one extreme to the other. It's all this sort of generalisation, it doesn't work for us. So just to be a bit more aware of that. So that should happen, and what should happen then is, here set your foot down, those arches, so that pronation should happen, that arch should be tensioned, so should this arch be tensioned, so should that. So you develop tension in your foot, okay, and that's sort of passive tension, but we also need to develop active tension in our foot. There's lots of muscles in the sole of your foot, and there's 4 different layers of them, wee tiny ones, but really important ones. Grand, thanks for giving me a seat, I'm actually tired for your test later on. And these little muscles, which I want to spend a bit of time on, are really important in supporting the arch in your feet. Okay, so rather than rely on orthotics, which again can have their place, especially for certain things, if we can get those little muscles in your feet working better, well, they'll do the same job but better, because that's more design, that's evolution, and surely it makes more sense. So we'll have a go at trying to get you to recruit these muscles. It takes a bit of time to get it. For starters, some people get it, and some people you'll spend the next few hours and go, he's talking rubbish, that doesn't work at all. So trying to get the connection between the brain and those muscles can be a bit of work. But if you get it, once you get it, you're away, and then you can kind of progress through the levels, okay? So we'll come to that. Shall we come to that? Yeah, we'll just talk a wee bit about ligaments. Well, I haven't really mentioned those much, just so we're happy, we've kind of got most things there. So main ligaments, there's loads of ligaments. So the ligaments of the body's answer to sellotape, okay? So they keep all our bones together, and there's lots of them. So all those bones are held together by ligaments within the bones, they just fall apart. And the ligaments actually in the bottom of your foot, as well as the muscles, absorb that force as you set your foot down, and the arch sort of stretching out and then contracting again, that passive stiffness. So some important ligaments. There's a wee one called your ATFL for short, it's the size of my fingernail, it lies just there, and that's the one you'll do 95% of the time, 10% of the time, you go over your ankle. And you can stretch completely, or sorry, you can rupture it and break it completely, or you can just stretch it a wee bit and everything in between. Okay, so that's the one you normally do. There's a wee one called this CFL, say for short, and so there's 3 main ones on the outside, and it goes from here down to there, a bit of an angle, and it can primarily prevent that movement there. This wee one here in there prevents that movement there. So I can tell if someone has done it, there should be a difference between sides. If I've had a bad sprain, I can go, ooh, that's gone completely, or it's just stretched or whatever. And then there's one which very rarely gets damaged around at the back there as well. The other wee ligament we said about was if you sprain your ankle, do that high ankle sprain, so you have a really bad sprain, or a rotation sprain, where you turn that square inside this mortise and it pushes that bone away from that bone. You can damage these ligaments here, AITFL for short, but basically ligaments that hold that bone onto there, and that's kind of like a high ankle sprain. So they're kind of the main ones on the outside, but there's quite a few others here as well that we'll see commonly injured. And then there's a big one here, it's the biggest one pretty much and the strongest one in your body, the deltoid ligament, which kind of goes down there and there. And if you've damaged your deltoid ligament, which tends to be from an injury where you kind of get rotated and stretched that way, if it heals kind of long and it's a bad injury, then your foot will end up being a wee bit more in this sort of rear foot, what we call valgus, because the force kind of is pushing down through there. So, and that's the sort of thing, if I see someone with that, well, they're overloading their tib post even more, so it's particularly important that they're strong through there, or using whatever else they can to sort of rectify that movement pattern a bit. Any questions? Anything else? So that's okay. Right.
See,
Yes.
regarding pronation,
Uh-huh.
obviously you're talking about heel strike. So if you got something running a bit quicker, chances are they're landing more on the mid part of the foot. They tend to land on the outside of the foot. The foot throws in. So you're still getting the pronation there. You're still getting the same action.
Yes.
Just different landing on the foot.
Yes. You still will get that.
Yeah.
You'll still get that movement.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. We'll come on to it actually.
Yeah.
Foot strike as well. We better have a look at some of those. So, set your socks and shoes off. Oh, sorry.
Is it the Ottawa ankle test
Yes.
to determine whether or not
Aye.
for a scan or not? What do you think?
Go for an X-ray or not? Yes, we backed up the research to show. Yeah, it's kind of the walking on it is painful, and yeah, it's definitely
So
there's
then
research
three
to show.
particular palpitations that you use and stepping,
Yeah, weight bearing. And is it sore in this part of your foot?
so
Yeah.
you'll send them off generally.
Yeah. Oh, definitely would if it was. Yeah, because
Right.
it does show that it's good at
Showing
picking out.
positives and then three.
Yes. Yeah, definitely follow up. Right, let's see some feet. We'll trousers up a wee tiny bit, socks and shoes off. Let's have a look at a couple.
Alright.
Just the attic. Yeah. Your dad. Yeah, James, there's not a huge amount we can do, but that's what it is. So there's so in breaching these toe here, you can see it's quite large, quite big. So that means there's a further wear and tear going on that joint. And what happens? The bone will try, or sorry, the joint will try and create more bone, spread the load of the joint. It's sort of thing. It's just passed down because it's sort of called hallux valgus. So instead of going straight, it goes that way. So if you've an athlete like that, from a balance point of view, they're challenged just a bit more, and pushing off won't be exactly the same as well. So you have to. Yeah, I'd say you're right. This is worse than that, isn't it? So I'm going to guess when we come to single leg stuff, I might see a few wee things. Yeah. So it's generally, if it's not a genetic thing, and you see that, when you step forward and the foot say drops in and pronates, will tend to go off the inside of the big toe. So it kind of pushes, you might imagine, the toe out. So this kind of happens, I'm going to exaggerate that. So the toe is being pushed out that way. And that can lead to this as well happening. Now yours is genetic, but you know, if I see someone whose toes point in that direction there, I think that's probably the way they move. They probably pronate more on that side than the other side. So I'm going to be thinking, I want to have a look at what's happening up around the hip as well, okay, and how that develops up. Right, okay. So, everybody's hiding. Who's really flat? Anybody really flat footed? Really? No? Anybody flat? No, you're quite curious. Let's have a look at yours. So you're like, so it's just really the variability between all these feet. So, you know, pretty high arches. Probably not going to be just as good like shock absorbing. And yeah, there's no one particularly flat. Right, so we'll use you and see how you go with this, okay? Now, if you sit down over here, so I think that might be easier. So, attached between those little bones in your feet, okay? And they're small muscles. They can't create a huge amount of force, but they do work for a fairly long period. They can work for long periods of time with low amount of force, okay? So they're designed just to keep the foot in a certain position rather than some muscles are designed to move. So, example, you know, that's a muscle that's designed as a prime mover, as opposed to little small muscles in my lower back or my foot are designed just to control wee small movements in the body. So these are designed to do that in your feet. So we need to train them that way, but we need to get them switched on first. So what we tend to do is start in sitting. It's usually a bit easier. And if you imagine there's a line across your foot here, okay? And I want you to think about bringing this closer to your heel. And as you do it, sometimes it'll be an analogy. If I've got a bit of string under there and there, and I do that, this arch should come up a wee tiny bit, and so should that, okay? So do you want to try it there at the minute? Yeah, good, and then relax. Okay, good, and go again for me. Nice, excellent, okay, so hold that. So that's actually pretty good straight away. So I can already get my finger under there a wee bit more. So literally, if I drill the screw into there, I'm just pulling that screw up a couple of mil and lifting that part of the foot, and that's now activating all those muscles, or the vast majority of those muscles in the sole of the foot. Now, at the minute, he's using his long toe flexors a wee bit, and these long ones, which I forgot to say to you about, which flex your toes down, they attach up here, so they go up the back here and go up in there. So if you can try and relax those a wee bit, still keep that, that's good. And then, so yeah, and then let your foot relax completely.
Then go completely. Okay, there you go. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay, pretty good because most people do struggle with this. So if you go once more, good, that's it, very good. And try and keep that shape and let those relax. But that's good. Okay, good. What most people do, and you're doing this really well, is most people kind of dig their toes in like that, yeah? And that's just using those long muscles up here rather than the wee smaller ones. So it takes playing around with. Okay, so if they do that, just tell them, lift your toes up and set them down and then hold that position, okay? The other fault that people often do is just do that, they lift this up. So they try too much to lift the arch, okay? So it's really subtle, it's really low level, and the lower level you can do it, the more likely you're going to get it, okay? So, once more, if you relax completely for me, and have a go at doing that again. So this stays on the floor, brilliant. Toes don't lift up. I can get under here, getting better at this, yeah? And the other common fault is that we use this muscle, this tibialis anterior that we talked about at the front, tachynavicular, because it will also pull that arch up. So we don't want that to work. We just want the sole of the foot working, okay? And then relax off. So that's good. All right, have a go. Give a bit of space, sit down, see if you can get it going. I'll come around and give you a hand. Pair up. Try to shorten your foot. That's good, that's good. And then hold that, hold it easy. Guys are usually rubbish at this because they want to feel something, okay? So it's really, really, really subtle. So that's it now, that's it. Because I can get in under there more and there more. Those aren't working, so it has to be the sole of your foot doing that. And they aren't working, so it has to be the sole of your foot. Now you relax. Your foot should just very steady. Sometimes it's easier sitting, sometimes it's easier standing. So we're strengthening those muscles in the sole of your foot to make a stronger platform for you to push off. And it's going to support the arches better, but you'll take strain off these tendons and strain off the muscles around your ankle. So that's your foundation, that's where you're working from, that's where we get our force from. So this needs to be strong so we can work the rest of our system off it. And this is the way to strengthen your foot. You do 10 seconds, 10 of those is what I would start with.
So 1 second hold when you
Yeah, when you've got it, just hold it. And then you develop it, you kind of progress into double leg standing, then you do it single leg standing on one leg, or sorry, single leg standing on a leg, overboard, that kind of stuff like that. Makes it stronger. I'll develop, I'll show you how do people get on.
Yep.
Yeah, it's subtle, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So subtle you don't realise. Sometimes you only know if you're doing it when you relax and your foot just drops ever so slightly. So once you make the connection, so literally you are kind of rewiring between your brain and those muscles. So you just need to think about it, think about it, imagine what you're doing, and that will really help that firing. Once you get that firing going, it'll fire more and more, you'll have to make more connection, and then once you can switch it on, then you can, that's the hard part done, then you can just kind of go to town on it. So what we normally do is get you to do it in sitting first, then progress to standing and 2 feet and do it, and then progress to 1 foot holding on, 1 foot not holding on, 1 foot on the wobble board is really good. At that stage you can sometimes nearly feel a cramp in those muscles in the bottom of your foot. Sometimes you might feel that sometimes the odd time doing things, you stand on one leg, you feel your foot cramping, that's those muscles trying to do their best but they're not strong enough. And then you can progress on once you get really good and doing hopping activities, doing it. But what I normally say to folks, once they get the connection, and you should try and do this for the guys, once you get that connection, just get them to do it when they're doing their normal movements in the gym. So before when they set for their squats, just think, feet switched on, and then they're ready to go. Or if they're doing any drill standing, or if they're standing during the equity done, you know, you don't have to take your shoes off to do it, you can do it in your shoes as well. Now, the reason we're doing it is because we're trying to make this bag of bones as strong and as resilient as we can, okay? So you've got another load of tissue on the bottom of your foot that you're using to help keep that foundation of your foot strong. If those aren't working, you have to rely more on the ligaments, and you have to rely more on these other muscles up in here to do that work and to absorb that force. So it's another layer to absorb the force you're putting through your foot, okay? And one we definitely don't tap into enough. Any questions on that? So try it, go home and try it, but really, really important, okay? It's kind of called foot doming. You probably get stuff on the internet if you want to. Right, so, Joe, we'll jump you up on it if you stand up for me. Right, walk up and down, that's what I can see. Yeah. And then again. So I'm just looking for gross overall, how does our foot hit the ground, where does it hit the ground, where does she come off, what happens to that arch on the inside. Sometimes it's blatantly obvious when someone's arch drops a lot more on one side compared to the other, which may be related or may not be related to what's going on, often it is. Here they're just quite stiff arches, and they're the same both sides. Okay, now,
could you hold on to there for me? Just do a couple of calf raises. So we're doing this. The main muscle doing this is what? What muscles?
The sleds.
Yep, sless, and then probably next to gastroc, and then that perineal longus that we talked about, and that tib post is trying to do a bit of work. And you can see the perineals, sorry, the perineal longus there doing the work. Okay. Now, what can be quite nice sometimes is just to see what's happening underneath. It's 2 feet, you don't normally see a huge amount, and it's quite nice to have a look at what's going on around the toes. So sometimes when people aren't as strong in their calf, they'll use their toe muscles to try and get up. So you'll see them digging in an awful lot. So these muscles, if you relax there, that's great. So the muscles that flex your toes, sorry, jump up again, I'm just showing that one. So the muscles that curl your toes down, there's one that does that, and then there's another one that does those together, okay? That's a pretty important muscle as well, because we want you coming off this part of your foot, and your foot, you should do that, alright? So the muscle that does that goes up in here, and it's another muscle that's important for it to be strong. So be hold for me, don't let me shift this. So those wee small muscles are important, as that one is, as all of them are, okay? So there's other wee muscles to think about. So you might be doing exercise to target those muscles because they're weak, which might be doing something like that. I want to encourage them to dig their toes into the ground, or actually, do you know what? They're digging those in to compensate for the gastroc and celeste being weak, so go actually, I want you to switch those off, relax those, and purely just put the weight through there, so you're biasing that muscle a bit more, okay? Wait, and you start for me again. You do single leg just when you're back this? This is when you tend to see a bit more. So, often people, used to ever scared, go onto the outside of their foot like that, okay? You try and see that they're going higher and avoiding using that muscle a little bit. So when you go up, try and encourage your athletes to have half the weight through here and half through there. So we're getting that perineal longus worked up as well, okay, the one that pushes that into the floor, okay, rather than going up. And the other thing you sometimes see, if someone is deficient in this muscle down the back of their leg, that tibialis posterior, is the arch drops down and doesn't lift up anywhere near the same on this side compared to the other. So it just gives me hints of areas that we might need to work on. So somebody who walks on the overpronate or pronate a lot more on one side compared to the other, often that muscle is insufficient when you lift up. So if you go up again for me, and the arch stays a bit lower rather than coming up a bit higher. It gives you a few clues on where to go. But as a rule, when you're talking to your athletes, you want them to load through here and through here, to let those toes relax, unless you're specifically trying to get those muscles stronger, and then relax down again. Okay, so how could we load this less even more?
Bend the knee.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So just take, so if you bend the knee, you'll take that muscle out of the way, okay? And it's too short a position to work, so it's floppy there, it's not working at all, okay? So it means you can bias that celeste even more. So even doing something as simple as just like bent knee calf raises is a great exercise to do. And again, I'd be going a bit more single leg than with double leg, because you're going to get the inside and outside muscles of your feet working as well a little bit, okay? Good. Jump up again for me.
You see, sort of when you say single leg, would you do that with any age of athlete, or would you want them to gain a bit of strength with 2 legs if they're younger?
Aye.
And then when they're strong enough, go to single leg?
I think go single leg straight away. I don't think there's any reason why
Yeah.
you couldn't, yeah. And just give them a few cues on what you want out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And often what they'll do is say go up on one leg, they'll do this. But actually if I do that, back on the ground, so you want them to go straight up in the air. That's much harder. That there going, yeah, actually. So just watch out for a few wee kind of slide moves. So you want to go straight up in the air there, as opposed to just shifting forwards as well. So yeah, just encourage halfway through there and there, toes or no toes, and straight up rather than forward. Now, let me show you this one here. So that muscle that we talked about earlier on called the tibialis posterior, okay? So it attaches in here, a really important one we see affected quite a bit, which supports this arch, which helps control a lot of that pronation as you set your foot down. It's often quite weak. So if you hold your foot just down for me, down a wee bit more, that's good, okay. So if you put up again here. So as soon as Kier puts her foot up, it makes this muscle work, so I can't really test it. So if you point down a little bit, because there's 2 muscles that will pull that foot in. One is that, and the other one is that. And the others do a tiny bit, but primarily those 2. So what I'm going to do now is try and pull your foot out without this working. and it's nice and solid. A lot of people use go like that, okay, it just moves away over like that. So there's a couple of nice wee exercises you can do to get that working a bit, and you can try these as well. Do you want to maybe sit over here? They're easier to do it. So we swap with you, and here if you can take your foot from there into there, and then back out again. What I normally do is put something slightly underneath her foot, okay, so the tile floor or wooden floor, and then ask her to slide her foot on the way in to there, and then slowly back out. And then you can add a bit of resistance in. Now, as soon as you see that muscle coming up or working, so just go a bit as hard as it because the floor's not sliding, that's good, and then back out. So I'm now selectively getting this little muscle going. Some people again will find this easy, some people will find it very hard, and you try and get it right into that position there. Now if you put your foot up a wee bit there for me. So that looks like the same movement, but actually that muscle's doing it, so it's important that this stays on the floor when you're doing it. And the resistance, if you can have the resistance coming down at sort of a 45-degree angle, it's even more effective again, okay? And the out bit is as important, if not more important, than the in bit. Because when you land, that muscle works eccentrically like this to absorb that force. So it's actually probably more important, that movement, than the coming in bit. Have a go at that, because that's quite an important one for you to test and to strengthen. So have a go, sit down, have a go at it. Make sure your foot is in front of your knee, okay? So foot has to be there. It's not going to work the same here. Yeah, that's it.
Right, which way do you want it now?
In.
Oh yeah, right there.
And then out slowly. Then it come out towards me, back out, so you're going to do here.
Alright.
Take your toes and foot stay on the floor. If you fix it this, so that keeps that steady, foot has to be in front of your knee, and then if you slide your forefoot on the floor, don't let the base of the big toe come up, and then back out. So that movement, so rather than turning the whole leg in, if you do it in that position there, it doesn't work the same, so you need to be in that position there, and make it sort of very, very focused for that, okay? So you're in that position there, foot in front, and then coming in. Okay, so we've got the intrinsics, really important. That's another one I often see is weak. Another one, which is the one we talked about at the front, that tib ant, tends to be a bit weak sometimes. You can lean against the wall for it, and I would like to be able to do at least sort of 3 10s and that, 3 15 single leg, lifting your foot right the way up, and back down again. You can try that in a minute or two, see how you get on. It's quite uncomfortable in your heels and with shoes on, but you can have a go at that. And if that's no good, well then sure it's something easy enough you can add in as well, okay? So we've talked a little bit about underneath the foot, about the inside of the foot, 2 common areas that I see aren't great, and then about the front as well, okay? When we, who sprained their ankle in here before? How many people? Stick your hands up. And say, yeah, I thought maybe half the room or so, yeah. So if you sprain your ankle, we know that after you sprain your ankle, if you don't do good rehab, what happens is when you heel strike, you'll land more on the outside of your heel. And we know as you step through, the weight will be more on the outside of your foot. And as you come off, your foot comes off more in this sort of plantar flex inverted position, which is the same position you went over your ankle on. So if you think about it, that's the kind of position you went over your ankle on anyway. So if you don't lose that pattern, it'll make you more likely for that to happen again. Okay, so there's various things you can do to stop that happening. If I see someone who has maybe who's had a fairly bad ankle sprain, not an ankle on the outside, and let's look at yours. So would you walk up and down just to pass the grip there a couple of times? Just want to see what happens to your feet. And back down again. And back to, and then go again. And then back down once more. Okay, it's not particularly obvious, you're very flat in the feet. Was it your right or left?
Both. Well, left has been worse.
Right, okay. So sometimes it's kind of fairly obvious, you can see someone kind of going just more on the outside of their foot. That's not a good pattern. Remember we talked about it earlier on, if you land more on the outside of your foot and come down like this, you're more at risk of developing those kind of stress reactions on the outside. So, and we talked about it earlier on over there in the group, when your foot hits the floor, it normally hits when you're running just on the back outside,
people always say, always work to the outside of that, and that's pretty normal, okay? And then when you come off, as a rule, you want to come off with half of the weight through here and half through there. So it's that same sort of position as the calf raise. The guys were talking in there, the SSE guys said a few years ago about landing on the outside there with the guard sprinting, and I could see how that would work. And if you've got a strong foot, and I think good thing to do. The idea behind that is that as they land down, that foot pronates even more. You encourage that movement to get that elastic recoil, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I would do that in a strong foot, on someone who's very strong on the inside of their ankle, and who hasn't had any history of bony stress here or bony stress there. I think I'd be cautious doing that with someone who's a distance runner who had history. Okay, so as a rule, we want you to be coming off here and here on the foot as you walk through. So we're coming through like this, rather than coming through off there or off there. Okay, so when you're doing things in the gym with your guys, encourage them to move that way, whether they're doing a walk and lunge or whatever that may be, or when they're loading their foot up doing their squats, ask them where they feel their weight. You know, do you feel it outside, inside? Get them to just think about centering their foot and spreading the load around the foot, and if needs be, then getting to switch on those intrinsics a wee bit. So they're very easy things to put in. Doesn't add much to your volume of what you're already doing, but can have a good difference on how the foot moves. Okay, any questions around foot and ankle? We've spent more time there, going on a couple of things. Happy enough? Right, so a couple of common errors that we see all the time. Why would I do this exercise, or a hip thruster, or what are we doing it for? Glutes. Yeah, definitely. So when I do a bridge like this compared to that, anybody see what I'm doing differently? So what's the difference between doing that and that?
You're lifting one vertebrae at a time.
Yeah. What are the differences?
Tilting your pelvis.
Yeah, tilting the pelvis, doing that. Is it changing what's going on muscle wise, activation wise, want to hit more? Yeah, definitely. So when I do this, that's my lower back. It's my glutes as well. But actually, I can do that without switching on my glutes at all. In fact, they're completely floppy. I'm using my back and my hammies to do it. Okay, so if we're thinking about doing this exercise really to hit the glutes, which is the main reason for doing it, and most people's glutes tend to be a wee bit more switched off, more so than the hammies, then a better pattern would be to turn off the lower back a bit by doing a wee tilt, squeezing the glutes and then coming up. And now I feel it there, and this isn't working anywhere near the same. I don't really feel it too much in my hamstrings. Okay, so really small thing can make a big difference on what you're hitting and what you're doing. Okay, so we'll have a go at that in a minute. So it's not lifting the lower ribs like this. Okay, it's lifting this. Rotate back, squeeze glutes, and you'll feel the difference yourself. So if you're doing an exercise, wee small cues and changes can very much change what you get out of that exercise. Okay, and then single leg, same thing. It's going to be harder. And coming up, you should be able to stay level. Be straight here. I'm struggling, and not there. And this distance and that distance should be the same, not this. Because those are just compensatory strategies for something else weak or not great around that area. If you go up and you go, if you hold for a while, you go, I feel that in my hamstring, it's about to cramp. Well, that's not really where you want to feel it. That means something's not going as good as we want. So get the glutes working more. You could do little tricks like have your foot against the wall. So you're going to try and do that against the wall. So if I try and push an imaginary wall there, I switch this on more, my quad, yeah. It's because I switch that on, automatically it makes this relax a bit more. Switch the opposite muscle on and make it relax a bit more. And then I'm going to think about squeezing the glutes. Still haven't lifted up yet. And then I'm going to rotate the pelvis back. I'm going to do those three things together. And now I feel that in the glute. So these small cues can just get that working and firing up a wee bit more. We'll try these in a couple of minutes. Now, RDLs, single leg, we're on the single leg stuff. So when we're on one leg, and we're doing a sort of say a stiff leg deadlift, and we come down to this position here, a lot of the time we would see this. Okay? Why does that matter? What's that doing? Remember that muscle we talked about earlier on the outside? Hamstring.
So it's attaching here and there. When I do that, I shorten that muscle. We talked earlier about we want that muscle to be long at length. So if you see your athletes going down, again, it depends what you want. For some reason you might want them to not lengthen there. I don't know why that would be, but it depends what you want. But as a rule, you want that to be there rather than there. And that'll make all the difference as to what they feel down the outside of the leg, okay? So a little small thing can have a big difference on what you're trying to affect. Okay, who's anybody ever do those or do this part of the training or the warm-up, or they've done those before in their life? Yeah, so when we run and kick balls, whatever, running, easier example, when I go from there and I bring this foot forward, okay, so I'm going here and I'm just about to bring that forward, the movement is initiated from here. So the first thing that happens is that my foot comes forward. It might look like that, but the first thing that happens is my pelvis should do that. So I'm doing this, that then drags my knee forward, and then brings my leg up, and then it goes forward. So the movement initiates from here. People who have groin issues or back pain, that movement tends to be nowhere near as good, and often people lose it. In fact, most people can't do it at all. Now, the outcome's still the same. I still need to get there, and I'll use whatever strategy I can do to get there. So I'll muscle it. I'll use my muscles to bring my leg through, rather than my elastic tissue to bring my leg through. Because remember we said about like the tendon, you know, it does this, as your muscle just switches on and switches on. Same kind of thing up here. So we get lengthening elastic tissue energy that we're using to come forward, but that's only been used the best when we can initiate it from the middle. Kind of like Fuzz was saying a bit earlier on, that we start our movements from this position. We know our muscles can't fire fast enough to make us run as fast as we can. It's about timing and coordination of those muscles. So you get muscles to fire, it won't make us run as fast as we do. We're using that elastic energy to make us run that fast. So it's about using that well. So we should be able to do this without this, which is squeezing glutes. So it's not this, because we're running, not doing that, start moving with that, so it should be this. And then we should be able to do this. And I'm not doing this, use my abs, keep the chest up, because we're fast and strong in that position. And then we progress to do a single leg. And then we progress to single leg with hands above head, especially your throwing sport. And on we go, okay? So, have a look at those three things. So have a look at the bridge, have a fade, play with it a wee bit by pushing your foot forward, think about squeezing your glute, taking the pelvis back. Have a look at that RDL, see if you can get it. If you're coaching athletes, it's good if you can show them. And have a go at doing standing tilt. If you really struggle with a standing tilt, get yourselves down on the floor. Try not to use your glutes, don't push through your feet, and just think, can you do it in that position there? Okay? So again, this is about rewiring and body awareness, so you can then progress through a few steps to make that transfer into your running. Okay, so how do we go? We grab a mat or whatever. Good, pelvis back, good. And go again, try and lift this right side up a tiny bit more. Stay there, good, stay there, stay there. Lift that up a tiny bit, yeah, very good. Drop this one. That's good, that's good. Okay. It should be different to not doing that, yeah. So just to recap on a couple of those things. So the reason why we're doing that movement is about trying to eventually transfer it into the running, okay? So that we're using our elasticity to bring your foot forward and leg forward rather than just trying to use muscles to do it, okay, and overusing this area. So if you can't do it in standing, do it lying down on the floor and try and do it without squeezing your glutes. And then you can progress from there to against the wall and do it. So you can do your tilt there as you get better. And then you can progress to doing it off the wall. And then we can go our single leg and do our split stance. And then we can start to get to the stuff that's more likely to carry into the running, which is doing here and up. Now you can start to see it coming in. So then what I want to do is try and get this as close together as I can to that, because it happens really fast. So and then it almost becomes seamless. Nearly. And the same both sides. And the wider apart you stand, the harder that is. You can have height and resistance and feel things you can progress. Okay, so that's the hard stuff to do. That's stuff you can do with your guys before in a session, just to get them starting to move that way. The single leg RDL. So
We said about pelvis position and not being here, which you see all the time. The other thing I see is this. Shoulders, my shoulders are now to the left, can you see that? Yeah, so if I start here, my shoulders are to the left. I'm just trying to avoid using this glute. So I throw my shoulders over. So I want to make sure that feet are together and I lift the leg up without anything moving, other than I shift a tiny bit, but pretty much nothing happens. Like that. And then the other thing we go down is when we're here, in that position, there's a wall there and a wall there, and I'm not touching either, so it's not this. And if you see, the balance lets me down, if you see that happening, that's probably because this has got further away from your shoulder than this, so probably done that. Yeah, see that? Or we want it to be here. And now that's recruiting this glute med and getting the outside of that leg more. Okay, subtle difference, yeah? So we don't want to be there, we don't want to be there, and we don't want to be there with those. Okay? And then if you ask them to feel the weight through their heel rather than the front of their foot, if they feel it all through the front of their foot, they're not getting as much through the back as they can. So a few wee small things you can just mess around with to make all the difference to what you get out of the exercise. Now, so last thing, 5 minutes, is just single leg squats. So this is a must for everybody. Okay? So when you're on one leg and you squat down, if we're saying that, it's not ideal. Okay? We're losing force this way, that way, and rotationally. So it means we have less force to go that way. So if I go down like this, I'm more likely to put force that way or that way. If I go down like that, we're definitely leaking force that way and that way. Okay? So I would want all your athletes to be really good doing a single leg squat. So that means when they go down, that they're not knee forward. That just loads up my knee. That's mostly quad. Just working a tiny bit. This is probably too far because I've really gone back there. Okay, so somewhere between using hip and using knee to go down. So because I take my weight back, that's getting my glutes working more. That's what we want to work, a massive, big, strong muscle. We want that to work rather than just loading up quad. And slice, actually, a lot of slice. As you put your leg forward there. Back to that position is getting my glute going. So we're thinking about that, and then we're thinking about foot position. So you have somebody who does it like this, and you go, actually it's quite good. But if I straighten the foot up and do it, it's actually not that good. So you'll see some athletes, like some people have a different rotation in their hips anyway, so footballers played football for years, this bone ends up being rotated, so they stand like that because the shape of their bone is changed up on their hip. Most of your guys will be like that, so I've been playing football for years, so you'd expect most of them to be fairly symmetrical. So if you have some guys who stand like that, and that's the way they are, they're the Charlie Chaplins, or you have the guys who are like that, that's the way they are. So I wouldn't expect everybody to be there. If you're someone who's like that, I would have them somewhere around there doing their single leg squat. Not right as far as that, but not straight either. And the same in there, they're either going to be very straight or maybe ever so slightly in. So depending on what way they would normally stand. Okay? Now a lot of people have their foot turned out who struggle with controlling this movement here. So people who aren't good at doing a single leg squat, what they'll do is they'll straighten their foot up, or sorry, they'll put their foot out to make it look better. And again, if I do that, it makes it look much worse. Okay? So think about foot position. Then we're going down, we want the knee to stay over the bit of the foot, let's just say. And we don't want the knees to go too far forward over the toes. Okay, so think of foot, thinking knee, hips. That ain't any good because I'm just hanging up my ligaments. So I want to use this glute med, get that up, keep this level. And then I'm going to sit back, keep this up and this up, so that doesn't drop. And the other thing that we want to happen is for your pelvis, or my pelvis, to rotate. Again, it's all control from up around here. So one right there. So this just basically is a block that drops down. So it means when we come to transferring that force, it's more likely to go the way we want it to go as opposed to those other directions. Okay? Now, a single leg squat will get you so far, but if you think about the force you're putting through your leg as you go up one leg, it's much higher again. That's your foundation, you need to get that good. Once that gets good, but then we're just starting to come into some jumping up and control. So see if they can control that movement on two legs. So there to there. So they're not doing that. And then you just cut them down off a step and just land on one leg, controlling it. So we're not going in there. So the forces are higher, that's harder. And then you progress on to doing single leg hop, just do a small one. Kind of control it. Kind of go higher. and control it, or you're going to start to see those bad patterns again. There's no point in doing an exercise over and over and over if those patterns stay poor, because they will just stay poor. So bring them back to a level that challenges them, but they can do it. Because if you're not challenging yourself and making mistakes, you ain't going to get better, okay? And then you progress on to doing some forward hops, okay? Now, often it's the muscle as well that's kind of weak on the back here too. So as we're finishing off, two easy exercises just to kind of kick that muscle off, get it woken up. One's kind of the clam, which is kind of fairly well known, without my shirt dirty. If I had a line through the shoulder and through my hips, extend that line down, I would like the feet just behind that line, rather than here. So I'm trying to get the glute medius on the outside here, and the back part of it as well, which is really important to controlling the hip drop and the rotation on the leg. If I have my back really arched like this, I'm not going to get the same effect. So a tiny wee tilt again, and then I'm going to lift this up without this movement, and that's quite good at just really selectively getting that muscle, getting it switched on. Okay. Now I always prefer to do something in standing, because it's a more functional position, gets more of our brain lit up, as we said about earlier on, and that's a better thing. But that's a good way to test between sides. Might be somewhere you want to start, and then you can progress on to doing. Is there a Swiss ball upstairs, Leonor? Thanks. We can do some stuff in standing, and I'm just going to give you another one. I'll give you one more. Thanks, Rory. So, thank you. This is quite nice because it's a strengthening one, but it also is a progression into the single leg squat as well. So if you have a ball down on the outside of your leg, outside of your foot, stand nice and straight, okay, so don't lean on it. So I'm literally standing with enough pressure to keep that in place. Feet are fairly close together, so the further your foot out, the harder it is. And then just bend the inside leg. So that ball wasn't there, they now fall over. So it means then I have to use this even more to keep myself up, because I'm pushing against this. So that's pushing against that. Okay, so that's really working at the minute. That might be enough. Your patient might go, or your athlete might go, that's lots. Make sure their hips are the same height, and then you can start now that squatting. So we're starting to get that pattern developing, but we're also getting this working pretty hard as well. And you try that later on. It doesn't take many reps before you feel a real burn in there. Okay, so just a couple of ways to get that working. So for me, recap, foot, vitally important, you push off there. Small things you can do, you can implement now to get the guys started. If you need more input, give me a shout, or we can do another workshop or something like that. But think about getting the doming going. Think about some of those other wee, like the tip post exercise, even the one just against the wall. Can they do it? If they can't, add it in, it doesn't take much time. Really important keeping this part healthy, so you can transfer the forces through your calf. We talked about some of the wee cheats in regards going forward in the calf, about where you want to put the weight through your foot. Just make sure that athletes are feeding back to you and give them some feedback on how to do it. Then coming up into the common faults with regards to the glutes firing. If we're trying to get the glutes working in the bridge, pelvis back, think about squeezing the glute more, okay, keeping the ribs down and lifting the hips up. Transferring that into like a single leg, and then going into maybe like hip thrusts and things, if that's what we want to do. And then common fault, the RDL, we just looked at that, and then the single leg squat is a fundamental movement that all your athletes are really good at. If they're not, starting to take them through that pathway of getting them switched on, which might involve some strengthening here, as well as just trying to improve their movement mechanics. Any questions?
What's your go-to exercises to improve ankle dorsiflexion?
Good question. So I would probably, it's almost like a cue because I've forgotten to do that. There's one little one which is dead easy to do. Yeah, here we go. So, yeah, so dorsiflexion, I mean that's one that we see lost all the time, and it's not good, because like if I can't dorsiflex there the same as I can on this side and I squat, like it throws everything off, the pelvis and everything off, so it's a really important movement. If you go over your ankle, more than likely you've probably lost a wee bit of range there, and that makes you more likely to go wrong again. There's no reason most of the time why you can't get this back. So this is a nice wee one to do. Get a belt. Lucky straps are quite good, shouldn't stretch. And then if you get it down so it's attached there on the floor, okay, this is going to slide up. But if you attach it down there around something really solid, put it about halfway up your calf, okay, again this is going to slide up, so just ignore that. Don't hit your head. And then if you get your foot back as far as you can, to the point where your heel is almost coming off, okay? Because if you do this exercise here, it ain't going to work. It has to be right back where you feel, oh yeah, that's as far as I can go, my heel's starting to come off.
And then what you do is you push your knee back and then relax. So I'm not taking that forward. I'm going straight up there and I'm pushing trying to straighten the knee. Okay, obviously you can't because the belt's in the way. You kind of go, well, what's that doing? And you'll do it and you'll go, I don't feel anything at my ankle. You probably won't. But if you do a before and after test, most people will see a decent difference. I would do 10 of those, 3-4 10s of those, spend a bit of time there. So what you're doing, when I do that, I'm pushing back on this, which is gliding this forward. Remember that bone in there is called the talus, so that part of the tibia is being slid forward of my talus, and that's what happens when you move your ankle. So most of our joints don't hinge. Most of our joints kind of slide and glide as well as hinge. So if you lose a wee bit of that slide and glide down at the ankle, this is a nice way of getting it back. And if you get that back, it can make a decent difference to your dorsiflexion, okay? So it's an easy thing to do, and you have to do it though with your foot, with your knee, or so your heel nearly coming off the floor. So it's a great wee one to do. So do it before and after, do a knee to wall. Probably most of you know about a knee to wall, so if you try and get your knee onto the wall without your heel coming off, again, find that spot, that point where you can go, yeah, I'm just getting the wall, and my heel's about to come off, mark it on the floor, go away, spend a couple of minutes doing that, come back again and retest. If you do that morning and evening, most people, depending on how long there's been an issue there, will make a decent difference. You should make a difference straight away, maybe a 7 year or 2. Okay? So it's an easy one. Good question.
Shin splints, what's a good prevention? How do you prevent shin splints?
So the shin splints terms is like a generic term for pain in your shin. It can be from a few areas, but the most common ones we talked about is that medial tibial stress syndrome. So we said about that kind of the running and how the dynamic valgus can affect that, so it's one thing to look at. The other thing I've talked about is the stronger your calf is, the less likely that's going to happen, so that's important as well. So it's generally making, and I should have said that, the soleus is a really important muscle with regards decelerating. It's one of the main decelerators in our body, so make sure that soleus is really strong with the bent knee calf raises. But yeah, so it's looking at running patterns, making yourself strong through the calf, especially that tib post, remember that exercise there is a really important one. And then there might well be other factors as well, some of those bone things we talked about, you know, so you're thinking female athletes, you're making sure the energy levels are up there, the calories, which asks about their diet, calcium, these, all those things. So there's, and if you're not getting anywhere, I'd see to it earlier rather than later, because there's something happening. And shin splints, or if you're talking about pain there, medial tibial stress syndrome, that's the start of the bone being affected. So it's not soft tissue, it's a bony thing that needs to be addressed.
That generally just comes from like changes in services and stuff as well. Like,
So yeah, it's training changes, you know, too quickly for the bone to be able to deal with it. So think about footwear on surfaces and what surface you're training on, and yeah, how much you're doing and how frequently you're doing that. Yeah, big time.